looking at the world from the lens that you're looking at it now, Leiva, with everything that's going on, with Black Lives Matter, with COVID, with our current political situation, add to the list. I don't have to name it for you. And understanding everything that we've gone through with racism, the fact that you were an educator, I want to ask you a question that's very important to me. How do you feel would be the best way to work on our education system in this country, but understanding that our education system was built on a white supremacist model?
It's fact.
Okay, if you accept that premise that it was built on a white supremacist model, what would you do to change that? If you'll allow me, I'll give you the simplest examples from my generation, Generation X. We were taught on the Mercator map. You know what the Mercator map is? The big world map that we all have in school. There's a lot of people that'll be watching this that won't know what I'm talking about. It's the big map that's in your school when you walk in. When I walked into school, I walked in and I looked at a Mercator map, and the United States was this big and Africa was this big. Instead of using the Peters projection map, which gives you, it's not right, but it gives you a better, kind of like a better situation of where the countries are, so that you can understand where your place is in the world. That right there is one example of the white supremacist model. How would you go about even tackling the issue of starting to deal with the white supremacist model of education?
Yeah, so I was a teacher for 7.5 years, 8 years, depending on who you ask on the calendar. And I was that teacher who fought white supremacy in the classroom every single day.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's how I know a lot of the stuff that I've been like talking about on TikTok. And so it just so you see my evolution of it, I've always been an ESOL teacher so pretty much ESOL stands for English for Speakers of Other Languages. 100% of my students were immigrants, whether they were undocumented, whether they were refugees, or green card holders themselves, depending on it. And therefore, I fought white supremacy every single day in the classroom because I made sure that the texts reflected my kids and were things that they were able to actually grasp. And that journey went from my first year, like trying to figure out what I was doing, to my second year, centering it around the marches that happened in LA back in the 60s, you know, during the civil rights era, where there were immigrant children walking out of ESOL classrooms and special education classrooms in order to demand for their rights for a better education. You know, and I showed that to my kids because they needed to see that, yes, you may be an immigrant and you may be new to this country, but you can fight for a better tomorrow. Like, you are the future of this country. So I started that way, and then it ended up to me including people such as Malala Yousafzai, who like, decentering, right? I didn't even know I was doing it at the time, but I was decolonizing education as well. You know, decentering the story and talking about Malala getting shot at, you know, and then just discussing what that means for a child to be willing to be shot at to get an education, and discussing that. And while I was discussing that and centering those texts and those current events that were happening, my kids were still getting taught to the test. I mean, my kids were the highest scoring kids of the region. I was investigated for the first 3 years.
Look at you go.
They would just score really high. Oh,
that's amazing.
The powers that be are always going to be the ones that say you have to teach to the test.
She taught through the test, but through the lens that she wanted.
Yeah. For example, like one of the exams, the biggest thing is main idea and like capturing the main idea and all this crap. So it's like, great, we're going to read about Malala Yousafzai being shot in the face for being a woman trying to go to school. We're going to read this paragraph and let's take out the main idea.
There you go. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is not an articulate reaction, but that is amazing.
Let's take it a step further. Go with me. How do you take that and apply it to teachers across the country that want to do that, who have to deal with curriculums? Is there a way to teach teachers to do that?
You have to learn how to finesse the system. It's literally like, I wasn't able to start doing that until my second year, once I understood a little bit better. You need to learn how to finesse the system. So you really do. And that's something that comes with time. You know, this is like, many people don't understand that education is an art form as well. Like, you need to learn how to form relationships with children. You need to care about kids. Kids will not care about what you're teaching until kids know you care about them, point blank, period. And it's like, once that trust was involved, I mean, listen, the reason why I exited the classroom was because people around me were like, you're forming a target on your back. I didn't even plant this. This is me, okay? This was the last book that I taught my kids before I exited the classroom.
Wow. And now everyone's being told to go read it.
Right, mind you, I read this book with my kids in 2017, okay?
Right.
This is a book that we read all year long. We dissected it. We learned about main idea. We learned about making inferences. We learned about grabbing key vocabulary text. We learned about understanding foreshadowing all through this book. It took us a year to get through it. My kids wrote research papers on it, and we even planned a field trip. You know, my kids did a boycott. They walked out. We did this the same year that the MST shooting happened. My kids were so ready and riled and fired up. Like, that is how you do it. It's literally like, there were kids who in my class would roll their eyes and tell me, like, I don't understand why Black Lives Matter. Why are they doing that? Who are now texting me or sending me Instagram messages saying, Miss Leiva, I just joined this protest, and sending me pictures. These are kids who are not for it. So it's like, whenever teachers say that to me, I'm like, you know why? You like being safe. You like being petted by the powers that be. You like not having a target on your back. That is literally why, as a teacher, I was always getting in trouble. Number one troublemaker. Every time I would walk into the room, people will roll their eyes. But it's like, hey, this is important. This is what kids need to know. This is my way of being an advocate and like turning the fire on the stove. And that's what I brought to TikTok too.
Yep.
Because it's like, I'm sorry. I'm not going to sit here and do a little dance for you. Not when like people are starving right now. When people are incarcerated for what? So that's why when you asked me the question, I had a big old Grinch smile, because I'm like, you guys don't even know that about me, right? It's like, I have been a teacher advocate for my kids for years. The reason I left the classroom was because my head of school had a conversation with me, and he's like, I need you to realize that you are a revolutionary teacher in an evolutionary space.
Wow.
And I laughed.
Jesus.
I laughed and I said, do you know what evolution means, sir? You know? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, to me, it means a series of happy mistakes. And none of my kids are ever going to be a happy mistake. Everything that I do with my children is intentional. You know, and my kids were like writing op-eds in the school newspaper about the Black kids getting suspended. You know, like, that's what my kids are doing. And it's like, I'm not telling them to do that. We are reading a book.
And they are acting out on it.
We're doing, like, it's like, yo, so now when I see everyone's like, go buy the Jim Crow, it's like, bro, like, this thing is old, tattered. I have like all my highlightings here. Like,
so I do have a question. The teachers who are getting a pet on the head, what book do you think they would use instead to get the main idea?
None.
They would use the one that the district is asking them to use.
Which, like a generic, like Of Mice and Men type deal?
Oh, yes. First of all, let me not even start there.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Of Mice and Men is fine, but like Catcher in the Rye. But those books are the ones that English teachers are like, oh
my God,
we need it. And it's like, first of all, The Catcher in the Rye is about a private school kid who has money and his parents send him to boarding school and he doesn't feel loved. Right. I'm a freaking kid who grew up in poverty, who doesn't have anything to eat, reading this book and wanting to punch him in the face. You know, like,
it's annoying.
You know, and then there's like F. Scott Fitzgerald, who's like a charlatan, like freaking parading all this money around. And it's like, I'm sorry, kids reading that is not going to help them understand the racial tension that we're having in this country.
Well said.
I'm not going to prepare them to be a better person if that's what we're doing here. Or if we're reading, mind you, I love Edgar Allan Poe. He's one of my favorite white writers that exist. But it's like, reading the Tall Tale Heart or The Mask of the Red Death is not going to make my kids better people in the long run. And let me not even get started on Shakespeare.
No, but I think that's a really good point. You know, how do they do it in Germany, for example? Children are taken to concentration camps. It's part of their curriculum. They have to go. They have to understand what happened so that it never gets repeated again. So
that's what I did with my kids. I took them on a field trip to Alabama. We went to the Lynching Museum and the Legacy Museum, all coupled up. I mean, this was a year's worth of my effort.
I would give anything to find out in a few years where those kids end up.
For real.
Because all you need is one teacher, man.
I had a history teacher when this was like the 6th grade in Florida, and we were learning about slavery and how they were brought over on the ships. And I have never forgotten that. We weren't standing for very long, but it was like a very powerful like thing because it was not something that any other teacher had ever done. Usually we just brush over something like that, or we're shown a movie with the white savior in it with like, I don't know, take your pick, How to Kill a Mockingbird or something like that. I don't know, but whether it was done the right way or the wrong way, at least like I can appreciate that there was like an effort put there, and you know.
That's why I swear by Jane Elliott and her blue eye, brown eye exercise.
Yeah, very important.
Exercise that she does with children, and you can look it up on YouTube, and you can just put in Jane Elliott blue eye, brown eye, and it'll come up. And it's an hour that will change anybody's life. Anybody's life. They bring those kids back 20 years later, and the kids never ever forgot. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you very, very, very much for giving us the time. You've answered a lot of questions for us. You've given a lot for us to think about, and man, I can't wait to do this again.
No, thank you so much for coming and for your perspective. We love your content. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
I love that you took a previous passion and you did that work, and that was so important, and you're still continuing to do that now. Like, you're awesome.
It's just who I am, girl. This is it. And I continue the work in what I do now, and it's just, I'm a disruptor. That's just who I am. I'm a disruptor. It just comes naturally.
Disrupting.